Hello, I'm W.C. Edmondson and welcome to Focus. Freedom often causes unbelievable silence. First, I would like to welcome with us two men of God. Today they are from Kansas City and St. Louis. Our guests are Reverend Wallace Hartsfield, Senior Pastor Emeritus of the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church of Kansas City, and the Reverend Dr. Jimmy Brown. He's the pastor of the St. Luke Memorial Baptist Church in St. Louis. He's also the president of the Missouri Baptist State Convention. They are leading up a group of African-American clergy from across the state, demanding state legislators to respond to the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized people in the state. This is a newly formed group comprised of clergy from Kansas City, St. Louis, Jefferson City, Columbia, and the surrounding areas. Dr. Hartsfield, Dr. Brown, I would like to welcome you to Focus this morning.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you very much.
Well, to get started, I guess the main thing to give us kind of a starting point here is how was the decision to pull African American clergy together from across the state, and what was the purpose?
Well, WT, during our state congress last year in Kansas City, Missouri, Dr. Wallace Hartsfield was one of our guest instructors for the Ministers Division. And during that instruction period, he kept talking about what we should be doing in the 21st century and showed a frustration for our inability to unite on common goals. And I was a part of that class. And at the end of the second day of the class, I asked Dr. Hartsfield if I could speak with him personally in reference to it. And I expressed to him my same frustration with what had been taking place when the clergy from Kansas City would go to or come to Jefferson City. It was as if they would say, "Oh, that's that Kansas City group." And then when the clergy from St. Louis would come to to Jeff City, they would say, "Oh, that's that St. Louis group." And it appeared that they would use the lack of unity among us to not respond to the things that we thought were important. And I sensed in Dr. Hartsfield the same frustrations that I had, and I know that we need to be a part of the change, of the difference making. And so we decided to come together in an informal way, just bringing concerned clergy from both areas and really all areas of the state of Missouri, and in an effort to try to at least be a voice among many voices, but we felt our voice needed to be heard also about the concerns that were taking place, not only among our parishioners, but among the whole state of Missouri.
Okay. Right. Dr. Hartsfield, I know that you have been very involved in the state government and so forth, very influential in the state. Why did you feel it was necessary to participate in the statewide roundtable, clergy roundtable?
Well, first of all, I am a great believer in this whole matter of the church having a prophetic ministry. I feel that the church should be priestly, and that is the pastoral kind of aspect, the caring aspect, the concern aspect about everyday life for people, what they're doing, visiting the sick, the hospitals, and burying the dead, and performing the marriages, and offering counseling, and and going from house to house talking about the matter of salvation and all these kinds of things. That's the priestly function, the care of the church, to see that the church is kept, and all of those kinds of things. That's the kind of priestly role. But then the church also needs a prophetic role, and that prophetic role, pro means before, faith comes from phonics, which means to speak, and so it means to forespeak, to speak before, stand forth and speak. And the speaking is to do, thus saith the Lord. And so I feel that in this role, that we as black clergy, especially black clergy, because our people are the ones who suffer most. I'm not saying other people do not suffer, but our people feel the brunt of it. And so prophetically we must speak to the point that we are in the image of God. And how dare you treat the image of God in this way?
How do you go about making such a profound decision, knowing that some will say, well, why are black clergy separating themselves out? Why are they meeting by themselves? How did you all address that? I'm sure you did.
Well, the truth is that we didn't separate ourselves out. Others separated themselves from us, and we didn't feel ourselves being invited to the table to address these issues. We're not the only clergy group that are trying to address issues in the state, black, African-American, or any other race. But we do think that when our children and our grandchildren ask, where were you on this issue, that we need to have put forth a voice and a commitment to saying that we tried to make a difference. We spoke to the issues, and so we're not trying to distinguish ourselves just as black clergy. In fact, we have united with at least 9 other groups that are not African American who support the 6 agenda items that we put forth for a moral Missouri, because it's not a matter of who put it forth. It's a matter of what is put forth is what needs to be addressed for all people.
Yes,
Okay,
and I would like to just state that with regards to that, this coming together, as he stated, it's just not us, but we feel that we must step out as a voice for our people. We must give that leadership. The black churches had to give the leadership all through the years. So why stop now? We must step forth. It does not mean that others are not with us and to help us, and that we are not with them and to help them. But at this point, this agenda is important to us.
And I guess for the non-African American clergy to see that covenant that was put together and to endorse that covenant, how much work did it take to get to that point where there were buy-in from non-African American clergy?
The truth is that, WT, that once we put it forth, and we put it forth with prayer, effort, the people that brought forth the issues, worked diligently to do the research and brought forth the information. We didn't seek them, they sought us out and said, we want to be a part of this. This is where we need to be. And so, and since it was not just for one race of people or one group, we willingly accepted the opportunity to unite with them and have them on board of the effort that we're trying to lead to make our state legislature, governor, and other leaders address the moral issues that are deteriorating our state structure.
Right. And the despondent, you see, just the left out, the despondent, and all of those kinds of things, they're not just in the African American community.
That's correct.
They're in other communities also, but we have most of them because we stand out with our color. And that's the reason why we're giving some leadership in this area.
Okay. Let's jump into this covenant. 6 points. Could you go through those for us?
Well, we identified initially 5 points, and then the 6th point was the voting, early voting in the state of Missouri. We think that this would enhance the opportunities for people in our communities. Many of the people who have great 9-to-5 jobs don't have any problem with voting in one day. But if a person has 2 or 3 part-time jobs, they're running from one job to the next, from Burger King to McDonald's or to Walmart. I'm just saying, trying to make their ends meet. Sometimes in that one day, they don't have the time to vote. We're within the 6 weeks or whatever the amount of time that is legislated or decided upon. It'll give them more time. We moved that to the top because of the pressing issue of getting it signed, getting the petition signed. and bringing it forward. So it became a part of. The 5 issues that we primarily addressed initially was the issue of education, and that in both Kansas City and St. Louis, the largest school districts in the state of Missouri, they are unaccredited. And a majority of the people who are in those school districts are African Americans. And so that became a definite issue. The issue of health care, what some have termed Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, pressing that our people would take advantage of this opportunity, and then the Medicare expansion in the state of Missouri, Medicaid expansion, I'm sorry, that we feel is essential to the benefit of poor people, not just in the metropolitan areas, but in the suburban area also. They need that Medicaid expansion because it brings dollars into the state that can benefit those. Some people won't be able to get health care, and they will literally die of their illness because our state has rejected Medicaid expansion. Then there was the issue that we brought forth on the importance of the payday lending, predatory lending. And we know that it has had a hearing, I think, this week, last week about it. And these people have a lot of money, and they're spending that money to take advantage of the people that can afford it the least. And I know legislators are saying, well, we're not a part of what they're doing, but when you approve it, then you are a part of it. When you endorse it, you become partners with the criminal. And I would dare say that these are immoral. The rejection of Medicaid expansion and the support of predatory lending in the state of Missouri, these are immoral issues. When we think of morality, a lot of times in the church, we just think about sexual immorality, drinking, or drugs, or other things. But the Bible speaks of immorality in the mistreatment of the poor, the indigent, the widows, the orphans. The Lord cried out through Jeremiah against the whole nation because it was identified as being immoral. And those are the immoral things. The definition of immorality that we're dealing with is when you know something is not right, and you stay with it because of a partisan political connection versus the people. You're not there for partisanism, you're there for your people. And if it's hurting your people while you're trying to be partisan, then I think it's up to your people to make sure that you don't get a chance to continue to do that. Then we talked about the mass incarceration, unfair incarceration of many of African American young people, the unfair justice system, the conviction ratio, the sentencing inequities, where one person in our community may get 5 years for a very minor offense, where somebody else would get 30 days and or just probation. Those things we have to speak up against, and I know we have been silent to a degree, but it's not because we did not care. It's because we trusted the people that we had elected to get it done. They're not getting it done. So we've got to speak to them, we've got to speak to the state, we've got to speak to the issues, and we've got to say we're not going to accept unfair, unjust laws, legislators, rulers, governors in our state and be silent about it.
Correct. In terms of our education and especially our incarceration, and he spoke about the voting, Larry, the voting. He spoke about the people who going 2 or 3 jobs and trying to get over. But think about the senior citizens who need to vote. I mean, they may not be feeling well, or they may be down on that particular day. If you have some early voting, there may be some days that they can get out and do the voting. We've got many senior citizens in that regard. But in terms of this mass incarceration, I am really on that, because it seems to me that if you give a person 15 years or 10 years or 20 years, whatever it is, the sentence for the crime that they committed. And then when they have served that time, and then they are let out, and they have finished the time out that they're supposed to get out in terms of meeting with the probation officer and doing this and da 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 da. When those things are done, at least to me, it seems to me that a year after or 2 years after they're out, that should be removed from their record. Why should they be punished the rest of their life and they've served a term?
Right.
That is unjust justice.
Right.
Unjust justice.
Right. You named 5. That was another. That was
The other
last
one was minimum wage.
Minimum wage.
I didn't want to cut off Dr. Hartsfield.
Yes.
You don't cut Dr. Hartsfield off. But the minimum wage, and we believe that the $7.25 or whatever the minimum wage that the state of Missouri is just not keeping up with inflation. What the president had suggested of $10 or $10.15, $10.25, we think it's a much better offering to people who are struggling and trying to do that work. You know, when I went into the employment and went to work, it was $1.25, but it was a different day, and there was a different time. I think that it does not reflect the importance of people making livable wage, I think is the better word. A wage where they can literally, if they are faithful to the job, they can live off that wage. They may not be able to buy a home, may not be able to drive the latest car, but at least they'll be able to support their families. And so we think we need to address the issue of livable wages or minimum wage in the state of Missouri. So that's really was the 6th one that we had not. They are, and the way I listed them was not the order of priority.
Okay.
The order of priority, we've moved up 3 to the top of our list. One being voting, the other one being Medicaid expansion and or health care, and then the third one being education. Because we see that these 3, and it does not mean that we have put away the others, they become more of our long range or longer range goals, but the short range goals is that we need to address those things that are just pertinent. If we don't do anything about Medicaid expansion, then it won't be available.
Right. I would like to say that with regards to the minimum wage, I believe that, like Dr. Brown mentioned about earning $1.25 when he was coming along and all. You see, can you imagine that hasn't been all that long ago? It hasn't been all that long ago. And think about in terms of just how much it has increased since that time. Just up to $7. I mean, that is not even almost $5. I mean, $10 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, every 10 years.
Yeah.
Not even a dollar over 10 years raised. And people are arguing about that.
Talking about arguing, what is your, and I know you're a minister, so we'll all be cognizant of that when you answer this question.
Okay.
When you have legislators who, for political reasons, refuse to give their citizens that voted and put them in office health care.
I can't imagine that. I've been trying to get my arms around that. How can a person, I don't mean just a legislator, how can any person deny another person help in terms of their health, keeping them alive? I do not understand. I can't even fathom that. You mean to tell me you can stand up and talk about the bottom line and the middle line and the top line and all of that kind of thing, and people are dying, and you're going to talk about we've got to watch the bottom line. So let those folk die so we can keep the line straight. What kind of foolishness are we in to? And I'm not just talking about black folk. These are people everywhere. Our hospitals, they have to accept emergency care when a person comes in. They have to deal with that. Where are they going to get this money from to keep all of this going?
Right now in the state of Missouri, they get it from us,
Yeah.
and they get it from other organizations. But I'm going to say that I think many of the legislators have done a great job of disguising their opposition to the point that the people in their areas don't even know that what they're doing is hurting them. Because if a voter legitimately knew that what a legislature that they put in was doing is hurting their community more than helping it, I think they would remedy that. Now, many of these people are disguising it under the fact that it is the inner city, it is the African-American community, it is the Latino community, it is the other foreigners that are benefiting the most from these particular issues, i.e. Medicaid expansion. And the reality of it is, WT, when we look at it, when you look for the legitimacy of not approving it in the state of Missouri, the only legitimacy that you can come to is partisan politics.
Yes. And I would just like to say that we, that is the faith community, the ministers, that clergy, we're coming up again, we're facing a larger segment of our community, and they in no way respect the dignity of the human being. They just do not respect the dignity of a human being. So we of the faith community, we must rise up and respond to this situation prophetically. If you say that I'm less than human, and you treat me that I'm less than human, then that tells me that you have no respect for human dignity. Either I'm human or I'm not. And a whole lot of folks said that I am not all human. They said I'm only, for a while, what was that?
Fifth of a man.
Of a man, you know.
Dr. William Barber was in Columbia this week, and one of the things that he said was that when the legislature go home, the faith community has to follow them home, so they don't have any reprieve. So the pressure has to continue to be on them for everywhere they are. Pressure is in their back pocket. So what are you all doing in that regard to ensure that when the legislature leave the Capitol, they don't have any comfort?
Well, I think that our initial effort, as you said, we are sort of a new group, and there are other people who are pressing us to move faster than we're at the point of moving. We're trying to give them a chance to say, we don't care what you say, we're going to do what we want to do. Then there are other resources and recourses. Right now, we're coming to Jeff City. We're trying to talk to them individually. We're trying to make our presentation publicly. Then there are other ways. Now, many of these people are located in areas where we don't have the vote to necessarily affect them. But everything that affects you may not control your destiny. We can become that rock in your shoe or that burr under your saddle, so that you know that we are there. In the 18th chapter of Luke, as we do have to bring the Lord in, the Lord said about the widow who went to the judge, unjust judge, she kept coming. She kept saying, avenge me of my adversaries. Some theologians say that she even followed him home and said, avenge me of my adversaries. And his conclusion was, though I fear not God nor man, this woman is worrying me. And so I have to do something. So if it's not right, then I understand you can resist. But if what we're saying is right, you should at least consider what we're trying to ask you to consider. And if you can't consider that, some of those politicians who right now are in a safety zone have talked about running for statewide office. Well, at that point, we agree with Dr. Barber. we can have the remembrance of an elephant.
Correct.
Yeah.
To the point that we can say, okay, you can do it there, but you're not going to bring that level of integrity, which is below the level that we desire, to a statewide office.
Yeah.
Correct. Plus the fact that these legislators, even though they represent these smaller areas, as he stated, I like the idea of him talking about the rock in the shoe and the burr under the saddle, which means that you can't rest. And the message just keeps coming. See, the idea is that we are not concerned about whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever. We are not concerned about that. We are concerned about justice. And even I am concerned about mercy too, you know, because justice without mercy, you know, justice puts you in jail and gives you 20 years because you did wrong. That's justice, you know. But when you get out, and then will justice continue that you have to suffer still after you served your time? Mercy should say, here's your life back. There should be some mercy shown in this matter. And the prophetic ministry keeps saying that. It's that rock he's talking about. We put it in the shoe. You can ignore it, but how long can you ignore it? The message keeps coming at you, and it keeps coming, never stops.
Would like to encourage our viewers to read The New Jim Crow by Attorney Michelle Alexander.
Yes, very good book.
That throws the covers off.
Yes, it does.
It throws the covers off of everything.
Yes, it does.
Before we close, tell us why you're here in Jefferson City today.
You want to speak to that, Reverend?
Well, this is the fourth official meeting of the African-American clergy for Moore, Missouri, and we are here today to attempt to speak to some of our legislators who have shown a resistance to some of the issues that are very pertinent. We are rallying many of the Missourians. In fact, some of us came through storms to be in Jeff City today so that we could show the seriousness of the issues that we are dealing with. This is our effort to move to another level. Each time that we've met, our numbers have grown, our support has grown, the diversity of our gatherings have grown, and I think that's a positive thing. Ultimately, we want our legislators, we want our leaders, and our governor to know that we're not here to try to stir up, make trouble, and that we're not here just for black, nor just for white. We're just here for right.
For right.
So whatever is right, we're here to support it and to encourage those persons who are in a position to make a difference, to help us to get a difference made. Something has to be done about the education of our young people.
Correct.
Something has to be done about health care and the offering of health care in our city. Something needs to be done about voting, and we resist anything that restricts voting.
Yes.
Anything that they're trying to add to try to restrict voting. That's a partisan movement.
Right.
And so these are the three main things that we're here to address today.
Right.
Bring before the people, bring more of the people from the communities, and you're going to see more and more people coming. Not just from St. Louis and Kansas City and Columbia, but from the whole state of Missouri.
Right.
There's some legislators here that don't even know that there are African-American churches in their area.
Yeah.
We're going to bring representatives from those areas.
Yes.
In the church community to say, we're standing with the African-American clergy for Moore, Missouri to say, let's make a difference.
Yes.
Let's change this thing.
Can't we make a difference? Certainly we can, if you will just do what is right. Just what is right. We are not here, as he stated, to start trouble. We are here to address the issues. Here are people down. And you mean to tell me that you're going to step on them and to keep them down? Why don't you allow them to stand up? And we're trying to say to our people, that's all right. If they step on you, stand up anyhow. Just stand up. And when you stand up, people can't step on you.
That's right.
They can't walk on you if you stand up. But if you lay down, that's what we've been doing. We've laid down in voting. We haven't come out to the polls to vote. Stand up. Vote. Those kinds of things that we're concerned about.
Dr. Martin Luther King says, hard for a man to ride your back
Yeah,
if you stand up straight.
if you stand up straight.
Right.
That's right.
Well, this 30 minutes have passed so swiftly.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Brown and
you,
Dr.
WT.
Hartsfield, for joining us today. And as you come back into the community again, we'd like to have you back to
Thank you.
report on the progress.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Reverend Dr. Wallace Hartsfield, Pastor Emeritus of the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church in Kansas City, and the Reverend Dr. Jimmy Brown, pastor of the St. Luke Memorial Baptist Church in St. Louis. And Dr. Brown is also the president of the Missouri Baptist State Convention. We hope that something you've heard today will pique your interest for you to get involved, to step outside your comfort zone. Sometimes you have to step on a few toes because yours has been aching for so long. So step out. If you're interested in what's going on here with the black clergy, please contact me, and I can definitely put you in contact with someone in your particular area so that you can get involved. We'll see you next time. God bless.